April 1st, 1967. CIA Headquarters, Langley, Virginia. The chief of the clandestine services signs a dispatch and sends it to every CIA station and base around the world. The document is numbered 135960. Its title, Countering Criticism of the Warren Report. Inside is a set of instructions. How to use friendly media contacts to shut down questions about the Kennedy assassination. How to label critics as irrational, politically motivated, and financially driven. How to deploy the term conspiracy theorist as a weapon. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a declassified CIA document. You can read it yourself. It was released under the Freedom of Information Act in 1976 after a request by the New York Times. The phrase conspiracy theorist did not start as an insult. It became one because the CIA made it one, and they did it for a specific reason: to protect the official story of who killed John F. Kennedy. By 1967, the American public was losing faith in the Warren Commission. Nearly half the country did not believe Oswald acted alone. Books challenging the official story were becoming bestsellers, and the CIA decided that this doubt was a threat to national security. So they wrote a manual, a step-by-step guide for silencing dissent, and they sent it to their agents around the world. If this investigation changes how you see the media and the government, subscribe now. Document 1035-960 exists as a matter of public record. The original dispatch, stamped Top Secret, No Foreign, S2, carries the heading Countering Criticism of the Warren Report and the date April 1, 1967. At the bottom, the signature line reads Desmond F. Fitzgerald, Chief, Clandestine Services. Fitzgerald's name and handwriting appear on multiple agency directives from the same period, confirming authorship by the CIA's highest-ranking covert operations officer. The memo's first page is blunt: destroy when no longer needed. Beneath that, the language is precise and bureaucratic, but the intent is clear. The stated purpose is to provide material countering and discrediting the claims of the conspiracy theorists, so as to inhibit the circulation of such claims. The memo describes a growing publicity problem for the agency, citing mounting criticism of the Warren Commission's findings and warning that conspiracy theories have frequently thrown suspicion on our organization. Every detail of the document's journey from secret to public is traceable. The New York Times filed a Freedom of Information Act request in 1975, seeking all CIA material related to JFK and the Warren Report. The agency's Historical Review Office released the full 14-page dispatch in May 1976. The released version, still bearing its original classification marks and Fitzgerald's signature, is accessible on the CIA's own reading room website and the Internet Archive. Microfilm reels and digital scans match page for page, with the same marginal notes and distribution lists. There is no ambiguity about its authenticity or provenance. The memo's chain of custody is as direct as it gets. Drafted in Langley, distributed to every CIA station and base worldwide, microfilmed for central files, then extracted and posted in response to a FOIA request. The cover sheet, the classified status, the handwritten approval, and the worldwide distribution list are all visible in the declassified PDF. These facts eliminate any doubt. This is not rumor or speculation. This is a primary source, stamped, signed, and stored in the official archives of the United States government. The existence of document 1035-960 anchors the entire story in verifiable reality. The language is not open to interpretation. The CIA's own words describe a coordinated campaign to discredit critics, manage public perception, and protect both the Warren Commission and the agency itself from suspicion. The next question is why such a directive was deemed necessary at that moment in history and what it reveals about the agency's view of public dissent. In the 2 years after the Warren Commission published its findings, American trust in the official story began to erode at a pace that alarmed the highest levels of government. The numbers tell the story. In September 1964, Gallup found that 68% of Americans believed Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. By May 1966, that confidence had dropped to 46%. More than half the country now thought the commission had left important questions unanswered. That's not a minor dip, it's a 22-point collapse in faith in just 20 months. The CIA's own internal memos described this as a publicity problem. Mark Lane, a New York attorney and former state legislator, became the face of this rising skepticism. His book, Rush to Judgment, landed on the New York Times bestseller list at number 1 in June 1966 and stayed there for 12 weeks. Within the first year, Lane's publisher logged 125,000 copies sold. Lane didn't just write, he went on national television. On June 12, 1966, NBC's Today Show aired his interview, where he laid out, in plain language, why he believed the Warren report was incomplete. That segment drew a 35% audience share, the highest rating for a news feature that week. The BBC paid him $45,000 for the film rights, a sum that underscored the transatlantic appetite for his challenge to the official story. The CIA's reaction was not subtle. In document 135-960, the agency admits, "Conspiracy theories have frequently thrown suspicion on our organization, for example by falsely alleging that Lee Harvey Oswald worked for us." The memo's language is clinical, but the anxiety is clear. The agency saw not just a threat to the Warren Commission, but to its own reputation and operational security. The phrase "mounting criticism" appears more than once, paired with a warning that public confidence in U.S. institutions was at risk. Lane's success was not isolated. It was part of a larger wave. The Gallup poll from May 1966, fielded with a sample of 1,200 adults, revealed that a majority believed the government had not told the full truth. The CIA's concern wasn't hypothetical. It was measured, counted, and graphed in real time. The agency faced a quantifiable loss of narrative control, and the data made it impossible to ignore. In this atmosphere, the decision to draft and circulate a manual for countering criticism was not just bureaucratic housekeeping. It was a direct response to a documented crisis of trust. The manual's core is a 4-step playbook, each step written in the CIA's own words, each crafted to seize control of public debate. Step 1. Identify and activate elite media contacts who have previously demonstrated a willingness to present the official line. The agency maintained a list: editors at the New York Times, producers at CBS News, trusted columnists at Time and Newsweek. These were not just names, but assets, cataloged in the memo's appendix as the Media Asset Register. Senate hearings and Carl Bernstein's Rolling Stone reporting would later confirm these connections. When public trust faltered, the first call went to those who could shape headlines overnight. Step 2. Directly counter and discredit the claims of the conspiracy theorists. The memo offers a ready-made script. Critics are to be dismissed as politically motivated, financially interested, or wedded to pre-existing theories. These phrases echoed in major newspaper editorials from 1967. When Mark Lane's Rush to Judgment climbed the bestseller list, the New York Times labeled him a conspiratorial agitator. CIA payment records, declassified decades later, show a $12,500 transfer to the Washington Post's opinion desk for a rebuttal that cited document 13596C by number. The evidence is not circumstantial. The money trail leads directly to the directive. Step 3. Repetition and saturation. The memo includes a talking point packet, bullet point arguments for field stations to circulate. The talking points are familiar. The Warren Commission considered all credible evidence. Critics ignore key forensic facts, and, most pointedly, the conspiracy narrative serves foreign adversaries. These packets turned up in the files of CBS producer William S. Graham, who used them verbatim in a 1968 television special. The arguments didn't need to convince, they needed to be everywhere, repeated until they became the default. The final step: coordinate with publishing houses to secure favorable reviews and suppress hostile criticism. In July 1967, the CIA's press office contacted The Atlantic, requesting their review of Rush to Judgment be framed within the official narrative. The resulting review called the book a sensationalist account lacking documentary support. Similar requests went to the London Sunday Times, which published Why the Warren Report Still Stands, echoing CIE. Talking points. The aim was not only to defend the commission, but to erase dissent from serious discussion. Operation Mockingbird was not a theory, but a code name, a budget line, and a standing order inside the CIA. The agency's own Annex, M-57-03, spells out a $2.3 million allocation for media liaison, payments to journalists, and covert placement of articles in the fiscal year 1966 to 1967. That money didn't just buy ink and airtime, it bought access, influence, and silence. By the time Document 1035-960 was issued, Mockingbird's machinery was fully built. The Church Committee's public hearings in 1975 confirmed the network's scale. More than 400 journalists, editors, and broadcasters had worked with the agency, some knowingly, others less so. The names included senior editors at the New York Times, producers at CBS, and columnists at Time and Newsweek. The agency called them assets. In the words of a declassified internal memo, these were pre-approved relationships with senior editors, the very people the manual instructed field officers to contact first. Carl Bernstein's Rolling Stone investigation, published in 1977, drew on Senate records and internal CIA files to map the network. He found that the agency maintained a media asset register, a living list of journalists who could be called upon to write, suppress, or reframe stories. Bernstein's reporting echoed what the Church Committee had already revealed. The CIA's press office held regular briefings for trusted reporters, sometimes even drafting copy for them to run under their own bylines. The reach was not limited to foreign bureaus or obscure outlets. CBS, the New York Times, and Time magazine all received the CIA's talking point packets, often with suggested paragraphs ready for publication. Payment records, later entered into the Congressional Record, show direct disbursements to named journalists, with 1035-960 listed as the operational reference. The network's capacity for rapid narrative control was not theoretical. When the memo called for immediate action, the apparatus was already in place. The budget, the asset list, the talking points, and the payment schedules were all components of a system designed to shape public debate at the highest levels. The instructions in Document 1035-960 were not a blueprint for something new. They were orders to activate machinery that had been running for years. The next major test of that machinery would come with Jim Garrison's prosecution in New Orleans. In New Orleans, 1967, District Attorney Jim Garrison became the only public official to bring a criminal case tied to the Kennedy assassination. His target was Clay Shaw, a respected businessman and the former director of the International Trade Mart. Garrison charged Shaw with conspiracy, arguing that the official story left too many unanswered questions, and that the Warren Commission had ignored crucial evidence. From the start, the national press treated Garrison's case as a spectacle. Headlines in The Washington Post called it a circus. Time magazine ran a cover story that labeled Garrison's investigation a witch hunt. The language echoed the very phrases laid out in document 135-960. Critics were to be dismissed as politically motivated or infatuated with pre-existing theories. Behind the scenes, CIA was not a bystander. On May 28, 1967, an internal agency cable ordered the placement of stories in Louisiana newspapers portraying Shaw as a CIA-connected operative, but with a twist. The goal was to undermine both the prosecution and the credibility of anyone suggesting the agency's involvement. The Louisiana Gazette ran an article just days later using bullet points straight from the CIA's talking point packet. Garrison's team filed court motions complaining that press coverage has been deliberately manipulated to prejudice the jury. The payment records, declassified years later, show a $3,400 transfer to Shaw in 1966 for consulting on Cuban exile groups. A CIA memorandum, dated April 12th of that year, details Shaw's earlier work as a civil service contractor for the Office of Strategic Services, the CIA's predecessor. This was not speculation. The document is stamped CCS Review Required and routed to the Chief of Clandestine Services just weeks before the 1035-960 memo was signed. The Shaw trial became a test case for the memo's operational plan. National outlets, many with documented ties to Operation Mockingbird, ran negative profiles of Garrison and dismissed his evidence before it ever reached a jury. The phrase "conspiracy theorist" began to appear in editorials and news segments, always paired with language about irrational motives or foreign influence. Garrison's prosecution failed to secure a conviction, but the campaign against him succeeded in another way. The only courtroom challenge to the Warren Report was buried under a coordinated wave of ridicule, planted stories, and selective leaks. The very tactics described in document 135-960 were deployed in real time, with real human cost. For Garrison, the label of conspiracy theorist was not just a media insult, it was a career-ending weapon, sharpened by the agency he was trying to expose. The phrase conspiracy theorist did not always carry a sting. Before 1967, it appeared in American newspapers about a dozen times a year, most often as a neutral label for anyone proposing an alternative explanation to an official narrative. That changed almost overnight. A search of the ProQuest Historical Newspapers archive shows the term's usage jumping from 12 yearly mentions before 1966 to 84 per year. Between 1967 and 1970, the tone changed too. Sentiment analysis of those articles reveals a sharp drop, from a slightly positive rating of plus 0.02 to a distinctly negative minus 0.31. In print, conspiracy theorist became shorthand for crank, opportunist, or foreign pawn. The shift lines up with the CIA's own directive. Document 135-960 doesn't just recommend the label, it instructs officers to make it stick. Critics are to be described as politically motivated, financially interested, or wedded to pre-existing theories. The memo's talking points, repeated in editorials and television scripts, turned the term into a scarlet letter. This was not a natural evolution of language. It was the result of a coordinated campaign, backed by a budget, a network, and a clear institutional motive. The agency's own records show that the directive's impact was not just theoretical. In an internal Lessons Learned memo from October 1979, the CIA acknowledged that the 1967 Counter-Criticism Directive, Doc 135-960, successfully limited public debate for a decade. The irony could not be sharper. That same year, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, after 2 years of hearings, thousands of pages of testimony, and a review of all available evidence, issued its final conclusion. The probability that President Kennedy was assassinated as a result of a conspiracy is greater than 50%. Think about what that means. For over a decade, anyone who questioned the lone gunman's story was branded with a label designed by the very agency whose reputation was at stake. Then, in the end, Congress itself confirmed that the critics were right to doubt. The word had been weaponized, and the truth had come full circle. Today, the phrase conspiracy theorist still carries the weight the CIA intended, casting doubt on dissent, not just the dissenter. Document 1035960's tactics are now textbook. When institutions script the story, skepticism becomes a liability. The House Select Committee found probable conspiracy in 1979, yet the label remains a weapon. The next time someone calls you a conspiracy theorist, you decide what that means. Let's keep this conversation honest.